So today we're going to make some darkangels Cataphractii Terminators for 30k or Horus Heresy. So we've got these chest pieces here on the torso, which we're not going to use. Instead, we're going to use one of these from the Deathwing Terminators, and these darkangels Terminators. Basically, you get them in the command squad or the normal knights. A lot of people that have had these will literally find that a lot of players have robes left over, mainly because the command squad doesn't use them half the time. They use their own decorative plates and chest pieces for the front, but you only get two fronts but one back. That is the problem. So now to apply this chest piece to a Cataphractii back piece. And by doing that, we just need to trim off a little piece on the back of this front piece and a little lip that's on the inside of the back piece. So this is the back piece that we've got to modify, and if I grab one of them from over here, that's already been done, so you can see I've cut that little shelf off there and that hood so it's all flush. And let me just find the same one for the front. So when we turn them around, you can see that this one has been trimmed right back. There's just the bit around the hood has been trimmed around, and also the two little pegs, so everything's a lot more flush. So when we go to push them together, this little lip doesn't restrict the movement, otherwise it'll point down a little bit. Flushing it off there will make it sit nice and forward. So then when we go to marry it up with one of the parts, you'll see that the underneath side will be slightly smaller, the back will be a slightly smaller circle, but that's no problem. We just need to line it up the best we can, and also line up the top so it's more central. Then once all that's glued in place and it's hardened, then we just need to fill in this little gap that's on the sides. A bit of green stuff, or just put a bit of glue in there, then add a bit of plastic, trim it down, put a bit of glue, trim, whichever method you want to do, plastic glue or anything like that, goop or something like that. Personally, I'll be using green stuff for this, because a little gap like that will be quick and simple. So all we have to do now is just glue them together. So it is straightforward, just the height of the bottom of that torso just needs to marry up with the belt line on the other one. So when it all lines up, you just need to get that top bit in line, and it all should come together, so it's like that. Not too worried about the hole for the head, you'll see why in a bit now. But yeah, that's what you're looking for. When it comes to the legs, I do this little peg business here, so it can sit inside and also be a bit of an anchor if I want to put a bit of green stuff, but it just means cutting off the very top of the ball there and then cutting a square out of it. You don't need to, but because there's a void there from where the torso should be, then I prefer that. A bit of green stuff or something, or a bit of random plastic. But you can always shave it down as well, so you will find that you probably need something there just to anchor it on a little bit. So I make sure I marry up the legs and the tabard correctly, so it kind of flows in the right direction as well. So this is what the process I go with, just taking it nice and simple, letting the blade do the work and just trimming it down softly. Nice sharp blade, and just carve it out nice and flat. As for this, well, you could try and cut all the bits off, but just cutting the shelf off, that would be easy enough, and then just finish off with a knife again. You could go around it and try and trim off with the snips, but for a nice clean cut, you want that knife. Just give it a nice little trim. Don't worry too much about saving too much of this, because it's better to be flush, just so you can stick the front and back together. And don't worry about where the head's going inside, because like I said, we'll get to that in a minute now. So there we have it. There will be a slight little gap in there, but a bit of green stuff and you won't know it's there, especially once you've painted it. Yeah, take the top off first, and then very carefully. Now you can trim this down in all sorts of fashions if you want. I just like to seesaw the blade back and forth, letting the blade do all the work. Don't push down hard on it, just seesaw it, and once it's ready, just click it off and you're fine. Simples. It doesn't have to be a square, it can be any shape, just as long as it can be like an anchor point for that void in the torso. And you know, it's meant to help hold it in place. You know, there's nothing stopping you to take the whole thing off entirely and just put a big glob of green stuff on there, to be fair. You know, but you just gotta have to mind then how it'll set. But with green stuff like that, you would want like a little drop of super glue or something just to anchor it in. But there we go. Just pop it off, and there we have it. Just want to tidy it up, just give it a little trim here and there, but that's all it is. If the the peg that you've made is too high or too wide or not thin enough for the torso to fit on, then you can just trim it down. If you trim it not too much, you can always add a little bit with super glue, or you can green stuff it. There we go. So here I'm going to put a little bit of super glue in that gap there, and then chop off a little bit of green stuff and carefully just take off the excess and then stuff the remainder in, making sure my tools are nice and vaselined up with sculpted Vaseline. There we go. Here's the head, which is a good old Mark III, I think it was. I can't remember this day and age. And I'm trimming the neck off. And you could do this to any helmet technically. I'm going to trim the back of the head off, the neckline off, and even both the like little circular looking block things on the side. So by the time I've done all that now, it should look like this. So what I'll do now is get a small little piece of green stuff, Bear in mind these are 1 centimeter squares, so you can see how much I used. And I just literally fold over the green stuff. Just taking my time. Make sure you use the tools and everything that I've had sculpted Vaseline on. It won't allow stuff to stick, especially the green stuff. Once that is ready, I'll put a bit of super glue in the hole here, and then I'll get our candidate and push it in. And then it's just basically styling the front of the hood. You might need to go around the back there just to sort it out, or around the collar, but here's another example using slightly less green stuff. It's not as long this time, it's a little thicker but not as long. And normally I would do these on a pin or something like that, but when I'm doing these quickly, then I will literally do them like this. So you're basically ending up with hoods like that now. So now the next problem with these, there's 2 torsos in this pack, but for every 5 Deathwing Terminators, you've got this one with this half Aquila like wing on the torso. Now, don't get me wrong, you could probably cut it off, and you could probably, you know, but I thought it looked quite decorative, so I have to cut into this arm and just remove it. So basically the arm can sit on into it, and then that first shoulder armor can go over the arm itself and that Aquila part to make it all look like it's meant to be there, basically. So now I'm just carving out that wing shape. So when it's ready, just glue it straight on. There we go. And then it's all the shoulders and business, but there is one other issue with the shoulders, is this little camera here. Now I've done this just to show the annoyance there. So what we're going to do is just cut the camera off. Now you don't need to have the cameras, not really. However, what you want to do is just first get the shoulders on, so you know where they're facing and how much you've got to work with. And I like just to trim the stalk off, or just into the actual light itself, you know, the housing like, and then just bring it on. Now there's power sword. I was questioning whether to use it or not. I cut up along the feather and then across the wrist, and just cleaned it up then. And then took a sword from the actual kit of Cataphractii and just removed the hand and then the wrist in its entirety. So you've got that little kind of backhand guard going on. So there we go. So there we have them. And yeah, it's subtle and effective, you know. It might be quite a few of these bits and bobs hanging around now, but I think this makes them seem a bit more Dark Angel-esque. Even went for different masks for the flamer guys there. But yeah, I hope that helps and inspires. Thanks for watching.